Hi folks, Ryan Renison here. I'm from MoveUp. I'm the business owner and founder of the company. I founded it in 2010, and our team here, we help South Africans navigate and comply with British government's ever-changing visa rules. So what we try and do is not only navigate a path where South Africans can qualify, but that they meet the eligibility criteria and submit first-time successful applications. Today's video, what I want to set up is a discussion on how South African business owners can set themselves up abroad. There's a lot of new content going out at the moment, and I just want to help clarify some of the misconceptions or the lack of clarity that my fellow service providers are spreading out there. So before we get started, I just need to clarify today's show. All I'm talking about is 4 different visa types, and I'm catering for South African business owners. We do provide other solutions for actual employees, but for all intents and purposes of today's video, we just want to help the business owners in setting themselves up abroad. 4 visas available for South Africans that I'm going to be discussing today is the business representative visa, the innovator visa, the skilled worker visa, and also the tier 1 investor visa. So the way I view it is there are 5 approaches that South Africans can adopt. Now, before I address the approaches, I just want to elaborate a little bit more about those 4 visas. The first visa we can talk about is the business representative visa. Now, by default, it sounds like the most straightforward application for business owners because it's about someone who has an express interest in representing the firm and seeing it grow in new marketplace. And business owners naturally can gravitate towards meeting that definition because by default, their core agenda. However, what I want to bring today is a different look at the theory of why the British government have put this visa in place, and more specifically, who they are targeting. Now, before I get to elaborate on this, I just need to clarify that this communication today is not based on what the legislation says. It's based on my expertise in dealing with the British government. I've actually had personal phone calls in discussions with the decision makers when they were based in Pretoria for these cases. I've had personal discussions because I've previously represented small firms in their ventures, and the decision maker had to phone me and clarify why the British government have put this visa in place. So credit where it's due, you've come across content to create awareness that it exists, and I too had come across that sort of provisions so in the legislation, and that's why I pursued it. After experience in dealing with these applications, I now have a better understanding, which I want to share with you, on why this visa exists. Before I continue, I just want to clarify. Businesses are defined in 3 stages. They're either a small business, a medium business, or a large business. And the beauty of being a business owner, I know for myself, is you have the choice to adopt either a definition based on your number of employees, or you can adopt a definition based on the gross turnover your business has. So in terms of defining businesses small to medium to large, a small firm has less than 50 employees. A medium firm has between 50 to 250 employees. And a large firm has over 250 employees. The other definition is the turnover of a company. Anything less than 40 million rand per year is seen as a small business. Anything between 40 to 100 million is seen as a medium business. Anything over 100 million per year in gross revenue is seen as a large firm. So now that we understand that the British government, as well as most corporates, view businesses based on their size, the discussions I've had with the British entry clearance officials clarified that this visa provision is mainly targeted for large firms that are looking to expand into international markets. And what's interesting about that is that the larger firms then have lots of employees that they can distribute abroad. And what is important to note is the reason why the British government haven't firmly said in their legislation that the representative visa is only available for large firms is because they don't want to be restrictive in terms of which companies they want to attract in their foreign investment or their growth. And also, you don't want to restrict yourself in terms of how long their business needs to operate. If this is a new venture that is growing substantially and has a quick growth rate, you don't want to be hesitant or resistant to that business to grow in your economy. So the British government, in my experience, are actually open to medium-sized firms and large-sized firms. What they're not really open to is small firms looking to expand into their market. Now, what's important to note is that the sole representative visa is not for the majority shareholder. So if you're a majority shareholder in the venture you want to expand in the UK, this visa is not for you. The legislation specifically says so. Further to that, this is not for small business owners, as I mentioned. If you've got a small turnover or a small number of employees, the British government's willingness to accept your application as a need to grow into the UK market, it won't be as justified. Two pros, though, that I do like about this representative visa is, firstly, the administration. It's much easier to submit a business representative visa than any of the other three that I'm going to discuss today. So from an admin perspective, the process is much easier in this representative visa. And then also in terms of risk, the implication of a refusal is non-compounding. In other words, subject to the reason for refusal, this outcome is that the British government can just say no. You can always reapply, or you can always change visa status. It's not a rejection and a rejection of further applications. This is obviously subject to not using deceit in your application. So if you submit a genuine and truthful application and the British government feels that it doesn't meet their definition of an expanding medium to large business, they can just say, this visa is not for you. That's the worst case. You would forfeit visa fees, but the NHS fee would be refunded. It's pretty straightforward. Next on our discussion list today is the innovator visa. The way I view this innovator visa, I'm not even going to talk about the startup visa that's been available, because you only get 2 years, and then after that your time spent in the UK doesn't count towards residence. So to me, I'm not even going to go down that path. There's just the innovator visa for South African entrepreneurs, and it's been set up by Boris Johnson. And the way I view it is that Boris Johnson got heavily inspired by Dragon's Den, and he's made a visa system that revolves on the same premise. So business owners have to pitch their ideas to a den of dragons, who then will say, yes, we like your idea and we will invest in it, or we would like to invest in it. And then the business owner then has the option to either take on board the investments, or they can just get approval to continue on with their process. And so that approval is the endorsement process. The complication with this is it's quite a time-consuming process in terms of needing to first get these endorsement bodies to reciprocate your intent. So just to acknowledge that you have intent to set up a business in the UK, that takes a lot of time and energy. And then once you eventually do get through to them, to then say you're looking for endorsement, it's not a simple complete this form, show your documents. They're actually relationship building processes. So just that, you're looking at a minimum of 3-month processing time to get the attention of these endorsement bodies and to get consideration. So in terms of this endorsement process, once you've achieved this endorsement by the Dragon, or what we call venture capital firms, once you've gained that endorsement, South Africans can then apply for this innovator visa and then set up shop abroad in the UK. Next up, we have the skilled worker visa. Now this is just the UK work permit. It's not really complex in its or change that much in its provision. South Africans not only need a job offer, but they need a certificate of sponsorship. in order to qualify to work in the UK. Now, in terms of this video being for South African entrepreneurs, it would mean that the entrepreneur, should they approach the visas with this intent in mind, they would be permitted to live in the UK subject to the conditions of their employment contract being valid. So in other words, if that employment contract is ever terminated, so too is their permission to be in the UK. South Africans would have 3 months to find either sponsors, otherwise they would be forced to return back. So in terms of freedom of opportunities, this is quite a restrictive opportunity for South Africans. You know, you're not permitted to seek other sources of revenue. You're not permitted to be self-employed or to work for any other firm. You can only work for your employer at hand and pay. You'll be tax liable for that employment contract. So it's not necessarily the best option for South African entrepreneurs, but it is an option nonetheless. And also, it's also an option for the South African entrepreneurs staff, should they wish to bring them abroad. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on that just now, but for now, I just want to introduce to you the concept of the skilled worker visa. Now we can talk about the 5 cards that South Africans can play when it comes to immigration compliance. The first card is send a rep card. So again, this caters for medium to large firms. You can go send over a staff member to the UK. That staff member will then be responsible for registering a company in the UK. They'll be responsible for opening up a bank account in the UK. They'll be responsible for registering tax in the UK. Then what that representative can also do is then become a license holder for the skilled worker visa, and they can then begin issuing certificates of sponsorship for each of its employees. The complication here is for the South African entrepreneur is then they would be theoretically permitted to enter the UK as an employee of their own company, and they would be restricted to receiving remuneration from their company. Another complication with this card approach is that the South African business owner needs to work out a way to structure the ownership of the UK entity. Registering a UK entity means that it's going to be liable to the laws of the UK, which is great. It's governed by that, and that's normally seen as a subsidiary. Subsidiary firm is just a UK registered entity, but really another form of the South African company. It's just an expansion of it. The second card we can present is the Get Endorsed card. So South Africans can pitch their business to UK endorsement bodies, and they can then hopefully secure that endorsement from UK companies. The complication with this, what I'm finding, is that these endorsement bodies are looking for some type of kickback or remuneration for this. So some of these endorsement bodies are insisting that in order to be considered for endorsements, South African businesses have to go through an incubation period, and they get incubated into the business practices that this VC holds. And another approach is that you have to have continued membership. Others insist that you can only pitch your idea if you're willing to give up some shared ownership. So at the end of the day, these VC firms are just looking to capture or get something back in return for giving this endorsement. So it's a matter of finding which VC firm's offerings best apply to you. What we're also finding with them is that because of these delayed considerations, these VC firms are also restricted in the numbers of endorsements they can give. They can endorse a maximum of 25 companies a year. The third card that South Africans can consider is the Get Sponsored card, and which is really could be viewed by most entrepreneurs as a step backwards. You know, you're going to get a job offer from a UK firm and be restricted to only working for that firm. But this does actually offer a quick solution for South Africans that are desperate to get out as quickly as possible. All the South African has to do is sell their skill set at a reduced rate, at a competitive rate, and then from that perspective, the company will then sponsor them and get your skills and expertise and your contributions, and then in turn, you can then bring your family members abroad, which is a big win. So it's not necessarily the best approach for an entrepreneur, but it is a quicker approach if you're desperate to get out quickly. The fourth card that I'd like to show is be the rep. Now, this is the one that's getting a lot of hype at the moment, and I just want to just quickly clarify. Remember, this is catering for those medium to large firms. If you're a small firm, the likelihood of getting approval is not high. It's worth a try because the risk is low in terms of the refusal implications. But from my experience, the British government have put this together just to attract medium to large firms. And like I said, arguments can be made that it doesn't say so in the legislation, but this is my experience that I'm just trying to share with you. It's why I'm not actively promoting it for smaller firms. It's just that the British government has expressed to me the reasoning why they've made it available. The fifth and final card that I want to talk about is the VIP experience, which is the Tier 1 Investor Visa. Folks, if you got access to £2 million, approximately 40 million rands, and you are willing to invest £750,000 into government bonds or into a business in the UK, this visa is for you. You can get a British passport within 6 years and just have that investment with the UK. VIP status is granted because that's the only condition. You need to have evidence you have access to the funds. They'll be transferred to the UK, and then upon arrival in the UK, you have 3 months to invest that 750,000 into that either government bonds or a UK entity, and then thereafter keep those funds in that company until you reach the time of your extension. There are provisions for the more money you have, the quicker you can get permanent resident status. So from that perspective, it's quite an interesting or an appealing option for those that have access to high volumes of cash. From my experience though, I've only come across a handful of South Africans in this position, so it's not a frequent occurrence that South Africans can meet this criteria. But if you qualify for this VIP experience, then speak to me. I can definitely help you in that application. So folks, yes, those are the 5 cards. Those are the options that South African entrepreneurs can have. What I'm just trying to hopefully get, because I've repeated this quite a few times and I'm sorry about that, but what I'm just trying to get the message across is the sole representative visa, as appealing as it is, it's not catered for small businesses. The reality though is that the British government's provision is really designed for a representative in a senior executive role to expand operations in the UK. If your company has less than 50 employees, or if your turnover is less than 40 million rand, your meeting that definition is not going to be as strong. Food for thought, folks, but if you are interested in relocating your business and one of these cards do appeal to you, please be encouraged, reach out to us, send me an email, and I'll gladly walk you through the process. Thanks so much.